Welcome to the Player Profiler Underworld, Roto Underworld, Day 1, Round 1 Reactions Recap. I'm Bradley Stalder, host of Stack Hunters, but also the host of this show. I'm going to be bringing on a few guests to recap Round 1. We're going to be talking fantasy. We're going to be talking the NFL reactions. It's going to be great. You can catch all of the things right here on the YouTube channel, but also on the Player Profiler News YouTube channel and the Profiler NFL Twitter. So make sure you guys are subscribed. You're checking that out. The guys on the news desk have been crushing. They've been getting videos out. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, taking a view of all of those, because we're bringing you the best advice, fantasy advice, immediate reactions in the industry. And I'm honored to be joined by Matty Kiwoom, Cody Carpentier. They were on the live stream giving reactions earlier, and now we get to do some focus on best picks and worst picks from the first round. Of course, we're going to have fantasy sprinkled in everywhere. We'll start with you, Matty. What is your best pick from round 1?
For me, fantasy-wise, best pick, I'm going to take the easy one. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to take the easy one. It's Xavier Worthy.
Putts.
We talked about it at the Combine. Patrick Mahomes showed his excitement when Xavier Worthy proved he was super athletic, super fast. Here's the thing, though. When we talked to him at the Combine, what he was most excited about was his ability to run routes, his stop-start ability. He's more than just a go-route guy. He's truly a weapon. And now you put him in this Chiefs offense. Patrick Mahomes went from having – I'm sorry to laugh, guys. I'm sorry to laugh, but he had Justin Watson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and now he gets to upgrade to Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. I mean, this is a quarterback dream. It's a fantasy dream. If you had Xavier Worthy in your best ball drafts, if you had an early rookie draft and you took Xavier Worthy, now what you have is the bona fide wide receiver 4 in this class. Xavier Worthy, I'm going to say this. I'm 36. X going to give it to you.
He going to give it to you.
X going to give it to you.
I like it.
Cody, you also in agreement that this is a good pick for the Chiefs and good for fantasy?
I think it's an excellent pick for the Chiefs. I think it's an excellent pick for fantasy. This is something we came away with when we left Indianapolis. I mean, if you were in the building in Indianapolis watching that 4.240,
electric.
The 4.25 was the first run, and it was like, oh boy! And you knew
that's right.
The initial thought was, usually when these cheetahs get up and they you're like, does he have another one in him? Wiggins popped the ham. He popped the groin in the first 10 yards. You're like, man, sometimes you just can't. You don't got enough gasoline to go back. And as soon as he lined back up at that,
you could feel it
in that south end zone in Indianapolis, you knew it was coming. The crowd knew it was coming. And when we walked out of that stadium, Alex said one word: he's a Chief, and they got to move. And I think that's on point. But I'm not going to take the easy chalk favorite.
I did say chalk. I'm sorry.
My favorite selection tonight. Listen to this one. Wasn't the selection tonight. I could take some BS Worthy. I could take some JJ McCarthy. My favorite pick tonight was Adonai Mitchell to the Buffalo Bills because it didn't happen. It's going to happen tomorrow night when you tune in on the Player Profile YouTube channel for rounds 2 and 3 at 7 o'clock. Right. Adonai Mitchell is going to be the first pick. I'd pick 33. I'm going to drop this mock here in about an hour on Roster Watch, and it's going to have Adonai Mitchell pick 33 in round 2. Dirt nasty, well-oiled machine up there in Buffalo. I can't believe they've navigated like they did, kicking back, boom, boom, twice, and seen 7 receivers go.
Yeah.
Adonai Mitchell, plug him in, 33. That's my favorite pick.
Adonai now going to the Bills. There's a whiff. There's a scent. CeeDee Lamb. He's always given off CeeDee Lamb vibes, but now going to the Bills,
this is
all the ancillary pieces are
that's right.
The Curtis Samuels, the Khalil.
They need a dog.
Shears.
They need a dog. They need someone to win.
But I will say this as a Patriots fan, I hope they screw this up and take someone nuts, not AD Mitchell.
I would say
But they have to. They have to.
They do. They do.
They have
I would have to say my favorite pick, Marvin Harrison Jr. The Cardinals stuck with their pick. They did not trade out
That's
of
a
it.
good pick. Yeah.
There were some suitors, some possible trade options. I like Marvin Harrison landing there. He's an immediate. The tweet out was he's automatic wide receiver 15 right now, and it's just going to continue to rise. There's been a lot of steam in the best ball streets of Marvin Harrison being a mid-second round pick, and he's going to stay there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's been some chatter, some players in the best ball leagues and the best ball streets where you'll see him at that 1-2 turn, even because of the hype and because he is going to be the number one option for Kyler Murray. We know Kyler will hyper target his number one wide receiver, and it's just a Trey McBride there, right? So I really like the Marvin Harrison landing spot. It's going to be really, really strong. That's my favorite pick as well.
B, that's a great call, because sometimes we get lost in minutia of chalk, of circumstance. We want to everyone wants to kind of nitpick on their guys. They want to find value. Sometimes you don't have to look that far. The surface is fine.
At you in the face.
We're on the lake here, Strawberry Lake, and there's fish on the surface. And Marvin Harrison's the surface guy, and he's gonna step into 140 targets. They took we thought maybe they could go wide receiver, double tap wide receiver. Nope, they didn't. They go defense. Marvin Harrison slated for 140 targets. You can put it on the board.
Tasty.
And he is going to feast this year. So Marvin, in your 1 QB leagues, rookie drafts, the 101 just became
Marvin Harrison.
So unattainable. It just became so hard to get.
Yes, clear tier above Malik Neighbors, above Rome Odunze in terms of both dynasty and currently redraft best ball leagues. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the clear 101 in those leagues. Cody, we're going to turn to you this time. What was your worst pick in the first round? And you can take it from an NFL perspective or from a fantasy perspective.
I think overall there was a few. But I'm gonna aim in at one singular selection, and that was the last one we got on the night. The failure, the complete irresponsibility, not understanding. But it's not. It's irresponsible, but it's also something that we've talked about
Go get him.
Many times on the draft rankings pod in the huddle. The hurdle is understanding where your team is and what your team needs and where your team fits in the grand scheme of the NFL.
Right.
And what we heard coming out of Carolina through the whole draft process was we need guard, we need edge, we need receiver, and we need edge. Notice I said one of those things twice.
Right.
Notice that they spent capital first round, second round on receivers. They've got Mingo and Marshall the last 2 years. They spent money on Adam Thielen. They spent money on Deontay Johnson. What are we doing here? They go and take Xavier Legette, 32nd overall on a trade up. They traded up one spot, gave up 59 spots from 200 to 151. They trade down from 151 to 200. I was just assuming, but they moved up one. Doesn't matter. It's a diabolical failure. I said this earlier about the Atlanta Falcons selection with Michael Penix.
Yes.
It's a diabolical failure by the organization to move up a spot to get a receiver of Legette's caliber, who is fine. Yeah, he had a good fifth year. So you traded up into round one to get a fifth-year option on a guy? Why? So he can break out in that fifth year? I like Legette as a person, but I'm saying in this particular build, where's Brian Burns? Not in Carolina.
That's correct.
Where's your pass rush going to come from? Derek Brown by himself? Good, have fun. I love him, but come on, what are we doing here?
David Tepper. This is a David Tepper move. I'm sorry, it is. It's ownership. It's pressure from the top coming down through the organization. Why move up one pick to get this type of?
Who's going to take it? Who's going to take that pick?
That's right.
The Bills.
Let them. If the Bills take Legette, the Panthers should go. All right, fine. Keon Coleman's there.
Right.
Keon Coleman might be better than Legette. They moved up. They sacrificed assets. They would sacrifice 50 spots to get a guy that is as much of a project as any one of the guys we'll see in the second round. It's irresponsible. It's a bad pick. It's what it is ownership. It has to be ownership because Dan Morgan, he's a pro. Dan Morgan is a guy that
he knows ball.
He knows ball. And he's sitting there going, we got it exactly where we need it to be. And Dave Tibbs goes, no, get up, go up, go. And he's like, all right, fine, whatever. I have to listen to my ownership. Boom, go get Leggett in the first round. Now you have to pay Leggett first round draft capital.
Yeah.
And now he might not be the best guy. If you took Franklin, you took Leggett, you took Coleman, you took McConkey.
Oh.
You can't guarantee me that Leggett is the best of the bunch. So what they did was overextend themselves to just stay in the pack. And that is a losing strategy.
All right, Matty. We've beaten the Leggett horse. What's your worst pick in the first round?
I just got to say that. I got to say this.
Beat the dead horse.
At the end of the day,
beat it.
I know Cody's my guy because he let me have this. Michael Penix was the worst pick I think I've seen. I don't want to say in my lifetime because I don't have the research to back it, but it was a horrendous, it was malpractice, it was a fireable offense. It was the worst pick I can recall.
Can the owner fire himself?
No, he can't. But Terry Fontenot is about to be on the 33rd team because all guys who get fired from the GM jobs go to the 33rd team.
Hey.
And that's what he's about to be because this is horrific. This is malpractice. This is a failure to understand how you're building a team. You have zero. No. I take that back. You have negative 2,000 foresight to understand what you're doing here. You knew months ago that Michael Penix would be there at 8. Nobody thought. Did anyone think that? Oh, the Titans are going to take Penix at 7. Oh. The Vikings are going to tramp to 5 and get Penix. No, nobody thought that.
Post Texas college football playoff game, people did.
Right, for a 1 week period. So apparently Terry Fontenot went into a coma after that first week of the playoffs and never woke up because now he takes Penix. And then we heard the report, right?
I blame Deion Sanders.
Well, Terry Fontenot clearly is just taking his pecking orders from Deion Sanders, which means Shador next year?
Shit.
This is going to have a 3-way fucking battle?
I will say I'm very impressed with the ability of the Atlanta Falcons to complete the quad and just fuck it. Bang, bang, bang,
I
bang.
do have to say this, though.
Complete
Dogs, don't worry. A left-handed quarterback named Michael, he ain't coming for you. Don't worry. Dogs, it's okay. But what is not okay is Terry Fontenot's lack of foresight, his lack of the room. I mean, we saw the report. Kirk Cousins was dumbfounded. He was disappointed. He's pissed because now he knows that he comes out in August and he throws 3 incompletions in training camp. What are the fans going to start chanting? Michael Penix. Michael Penix. That is no way for a $200 million quarterback to operate. This is horrific. This is awful. And this is why the Atlanta Falcons this isn't why they blew a 28-3 lead, but it's also just in that
microcosmic.
Realm. It's exactly. It's in the realm. Falcons, I'm sorry. Your team builder is a damn putz.
I think the only comp that I could think of, and this is much worse. But it reminded me of the Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love scenario where there was no communication with Aaron Rodgers during that time. The Packers were on a trajectory for winning. They had a lot of pieces in place, and then they traded up for a quarterback, a position that they didn't need to address a backup. Now, fast forward a couple of years, Jordan Love having a great season. It seemed to work, but Jordan Love also was an unfinished product. He was much younger at the time. But now we have an older Michael Penix.
That's right.
By the time the contract ends for Kirk Cousins, you have over $100 million guaranteed to this quarterback. Like, what?
And then you can't. This is the thing, though. If they traded back to, let's call it 25, and you take Penix. The Falcons community, the fans understand the progression
Yes.
of the plan. You take a quarterback in the top. Penix went before JJ McCarthy.
That was a sick takeaway.
Yeah.
That was a sick one. In real time, I was like, holy. And then
There's
actually
no
happened.
patience.
That happened.
There's no patience
No.
because the Vikings will have patience. They could go Darnold this year and let McCarthy learn.
Right.
Kevin can develop, and that's gonna feel right. It's gonna be right. That makes sense.
JJ's going to pick up this. He's going to pick this playbook up by July.
He might have it picked up right now. That's the type of kid he is. But Penix is gonna be like, yo, you ever watch back in the day? You guys watch Friday Night Lights?
Yes.
Yeah.
Booby Miles, let Booby spin.
Mm.
Let Booby spin.
Yeah.
Michael Penix should be sitting in the back. Let Michael spin. I'm 25 years old. I'm not trying to wait.
Who's he going to spin to? He is. Drake London and Pitts are not guys you can spin to.
He could spin too.
No.
Yes, he could. Michael Penix right now. Let's say Kirk Cousins is out of the equation. Let's say Kirk Cousins goes to the Patriots, goes to the
Darnell
whoever.
Mooney. He's going to spin to Darnell Mooney. Penix, you know what Penix is.
If Penix went to the Falcons and there was no Kirk Cousins, we would love Michael Penix right now.
Disagree.
Really?
He's not. He can't. You know exactly what he is. He's not a spinner. If it was McCarthy in that offense, I would say yes. But Michael Penix in that offense, he's not built for it. He's not built for a run-based play action.
Throw deep to him, Drake London.
Who the hell is Drake London going to separate from downfield and beat? Who's he going to beat? Was he going to beat Xavier Rhodes when he's 34 years old? Is that who he's going to beat? What are we talking about here? Drake London. I get it.
No,
what are we
you're
talking
right,
about with
you're
Drake
right.
London, man?
You're
That's the
You're
problem.
making some sense.
He might hit Darnell Mooney on 4 deep balls in 16 games, 17 games. Sorry, but I just don't see. I don't see it.
But you know what sucks though?
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins now has to worry about something that no quarterback should worry about. Basketball short season. When
Yes.
the quarterbacks are throwing passes in basketball shorts and no
he looks
pads,
good.
and all of a sudden Michael Penix is freaking zipping it to these kids, all of a sudden the Atlanta Falcons
Or he's got accuracy.
Tyler Knable over there is going, put Penix in. You get Kirk Cousins, put Penix in. And now Penix has to worry about, Penix, it's not good. Terry Fontenot is going to be fired for this. This is a fireable offense. And bad franchises stay bad.
That's right. We'll put a bow on it. I'll offer my 1 minute take on the worst pick. And I think that it was, again, an omission. And it was the Las Vegas Raiders not addressing the quarterback position. They're going into the season now with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. And now one of those players is throwing to Brock Bowers, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers.
Very QB friendly, though.
Yeah, great. It's a
Very
great
QB friendly.
situation, but the quarterback position is not addressed, and that's a major concern for the fantasy assets, but also for just investing in the stacks of the Las Vegas Raiders. So my concern is that Vegas did not do enough in this draft to make an effort to get, if JJ McCarthy's going to be there,
Yeah.
You could have gotten him at 8. You could have moved up, make that move. But nevertheless, it's been great talking about this with you guys and doing these takeaways. We've got some more great guests coming up. Cody and Matty, make sure you guys are checking out all the great things that they're doing on Player Profiler and also on Roster Watch.
Appreciate
Keep
you,
brushing
brother.
it, guys.
Appreciate you, brother.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty Leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
All right, welcome back. We are here with Theo Gremminger. I'm Bradley Stalder, hosting Draft Day Insights. We've just completed round 1 of the NFL draft. Theo, it was an exciting night getting into all the fantasy takeaways. There were some major surprises. We talked about some of the players that were just absolute surprise. The quarterbacks getting 6 in the top 12. That was wild. So we're going to focus, though, in our conversation in the next 10 minutes or so about some fantasy takeaways. We're going to look at some of the positions, the quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. No running backs, though, in the first round. Josh Larky pointing that out to us earlier, that was an easy pick. No running backs in the first round, but we did get Caleb Williams going off the board. What were some quarterback takeaways, would you say, for fantasy to start?
I mean, it was an ideal draft for Superflex Dynasty managers because Bo Nix goes at 12 overall, steps into an immediate role as a starter.
Yes.
You get J.J. McCarthy landing into a dream scenario with weapons galore and a strong offensive line. It's a tailor-made spot for him to be successful.
Yes.
You get Michael Penix getting top 10 draft capital, albeit a sort of a boxed out immediate starter role in Atlanta. But like Michael Penix getting the top 10 draft capital is massive.
Yes.
If you start looking at hit rates for NFL quarterbacks and you look at one selected in the top 10 versus one selected in like the second round where some people had Michael Penix, it's night and day. So
he's going to be given a long leash.
Absolutely. And Michael Penix is an older player that they used the number 8 overall pick on. I don't buy the whole notion that this is going to be I think that there's a outside the box scenario that this is a Russell Wilson rookie year scenario where he steps into a situation where he's supposed to be boxed out and he wins the role. So I don't think that's the plan. I think Kirk Cousins, absolutely, with the amount of money they paid him and his pedigree and how good he was last year when he was healthy, like that's the safe bet. But at any point that they feel like Michael Penix is going to take them to the next level, they're going to go with that based on what they spent on him. So this was a massive win. We had Caleb Williams not only is selected number 1 overall, but we have to start talking about Caleb Williams in a sense that he has the best set of wide receivers in the entire league.
Yes.
Like wide receiver
plus
trios.
Cole Kmet, plus DeAndre Swift, plus Khalil Herbert. Like he has not just the wide receiver weapons, which are phenomenal, but also the other weapons that can just support.
Yeah. And I think that they have enough confidence in their offensive line that taking a big step forward this year that they were able to pass up offensive linemen and go with Rome Odunze.
Yes.
I mean, that was a huge statement by Chicago. So like Caleb Williams, it's not a matter of who you're taking with the 101 in your super flex drafts. Caleb Williams is it. It's a matter of where Caleb Williams goes in dynasty startups and where he goes in best ball and redraft leagues, Bradley, because Caleb Williams right now, you can make a case that he should be treated as a top 8 quarterback in all formats.
I don't hate that. Right now, he was going in that 12 to 14 range.
Yeah.
And that's a fair range. I think top 8 does get a little spicy where you see the rushing quarterbacks be the ones who are dominating that space. But Caleb Williams was mobile in college. He had a lot of rushing touchdowns. I wonder how they're going to use him in the goal line scenarios to get those touchdowns. But that's certainly within the range of outcomes. I don't hate that take. And I think that, that if you have the ability to get a top 5, top 8 quarterback and it hits the right way with the passing work and also a little bit of rushing, we could see prime Aaron Rodgers right away. That type of mobility, the rushing, you could always count on Rodgers to get 300, 400 rushing yards plus four or so touchdowns in addition to the effective passing. And you can see that right away here for Caleb Williams. So I agree with you, and he's clearly the 101 in Superflex. And you had talked, last week or so about Caleb Williams being in that 105 conversation, and I think that this cements him in that conversation still, like very strongly. You know what you have in Caleb Williams. You have a bona fide blue chip piece of your fantasy team, and so Caleb Williams, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb, if you're unsure of which way to go with, I mean, for me, it's Xavier Worthy at the 105 in single QB leagues. But
with this new information,
at the end of the day, it's Caleb Williams is about as safe as it gets, even in single QB leagues, for just what he presents to you in terms of his upside and also now his floor. So, I mean, it's a huge win for Caleb Williams. And then it's sort of what we expected with Jaden Daniels. I mean, you don't really adjust it. He's clearly the QB2 in the class. I think the discussion comes in at QB3. If you have incredible doubts about the New England Patriots being able to support Drake May and have weapons around him and sort of him succeeding, then you can trade down. You can take JJ McCarthy. But for me, I think that there's also a scenario where Drake May is sort of the one-man gang, and he's going to get more rushing opportunities in New England. They've seen what Josh Allen was able to do in Buffalo.
Yes.
I think certainly around the goal line, certainly in short yardage, Drake May is mobile. Drake May can run. That might be his path to fantasy viability.
Yes.
So, it's definitely a huge win from the quarterbacks. Any way you want to cut it, the NFL valued the quarterback position a lot higher than we did.
Yes.
Where, in our fantasy football buildup and also the betting markets,
yes,
it was always rated 4.5.
Right.
No,
were those two quarterbacks going to be first rounders?
I had 6 in my mock draft,
Yeah.
but certainly not 6 in the top 12.
That was wild.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that if you were drafting in the best ball streets or in the pre-NFL streets, ultimately you were seeing Bo Nix, you were seeing JJ McCarthy, you were seeing Bo Nix, you were seeing these late quarterback, the 4, 5, 6 being drafted at quarterback 28, 29, 30, or even later. Like you were able to get Bo Nix at quarterback 35, and now he steps into a starting role. And with spike week opportunities, you still have Cortland Sutton there. You still have Marvin Mims there. You have pieces that can give you massive spike weeks. And so, drafting those quarterbacks, especially when there was uncertainty, was the way to hit that quarterback 3 in your drafts. And that's something to take away, but also to immediately attack now that we have that information if we're drafting forward.
Yeah, Bo Nix is a fun one for not only Dynasty, but also for best ball because you bring up the potential for spike weeks. Bo Nix is also a sneaky runner.
Yes.
People don't necessarily see it, but he's a guy who had a double-digit touchdown. I believe it was a 14 rushing touchdown season 2 years ago at Oregon. Not last year, but 2 years back when he was running a lot more. So, Bo Nix is interesting, and Sean Payton values accuracy.
Yes.
And there's been a little pushback saying that it's Oregon sort of manufactures the accuracy.
It's the
sort
system,
of screen
blah,
passes,
blah, blah.
dump offs, all that. But end of the day,
You got to complete the passes.
led
You
the
got to
nation
keep
in
the offense going.
completion percentage.
Yes.
So, Bo Nix is definitely a winner tonight for sure to go 12 overall. Denver not trading back and just taking them. Atlanta is definitely the shock of the night.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I'll take a little bit of a counter approach to a lot of my colleagues that are trying to bury Atlanta. It's the most important position in the NFL.
You have to get it right if you want to win.
And they spent this much money on Kirk Cousins, and they now have, Raheem Morris. They have Zach Robinson. They have stability at the head coaching position. They have stability at the offensive coordinator position. They have skill position players, and they have talent on the defensive side of the ball. When it comes to it, they've added another option at quarterback. Now they have 2 chances to get it right.
Yes.
And they might not have another opportunity to draft inside of the top 10.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it could be the biggest wasted contract ever for Kirk Cousins, but their fans are going to quickly forget that if Michael Penix does well.
If he pans out, yeah.
And if Kirk Cousins is good enough to keep the number 8 pick in the NFL draft off the field, then that's a win as well. So I'm taking a little bit of a counter approach. Atlanta has seen how bad it can get when they have poor quarterback play.
Yes.
They are pushing all of the chips in. They're taking 2 big shots, top 10 draft capital, and a mega contract in the same offseason.
And we don't know. We assume that Kirk Cousins is good to go in the fall. like based on what we've seen in the past for Achilles injuries. But he's an older quarterback coming off of what would have been a career-ending injury in previous seasons, a decade ago. And so now we have this stability. You mentioned shoring up that quarterback 2 position. We've seen since the 17 games season has been instituted, quarterbacks have been missing 3, 4, 5 plus games as the starters. And so that insurance policy is massive for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. With you've got Bijan, you've got London, you've got Pitts, you've got pieces on the defense as well that are game changers. And so, we can see that as long as it pans out, everything is forgiven.
Yeah, 100%. It's and you also have 2 quarterbacks who have had previous injuries.
Yes.
And obviously the Michael Penix physical is clean based on what he did at his pro day. The incredible 40-yard dash time for Penix. I think that pro day really pushed some things over the edge here. You had a number of NFL teams where they were sort of rumored to be looking at Penix here in the first round.
Yes.
And it seemed like it was a lot of well-timed news dumps from like his agent at his camp. And that sort of became the joke on Twitter. Well, at the end of the day,
but good job. You won.
Michael Penix has the agent of the year.
Yes.
So it was an incredible NFL draft for sure. But the quarterback position, massive wins. Superflex managers holding like the 110, the 111, the 112 even might have access to a Nix or a Penix. I think that the top 8 is locked in.
Yes.
But I think the fact that we saw Xavier Worthy land so well, the fact that we saw Ricky Pearsall potentially in a top 2 wide receiver role if we see an Ayuk or a Deebo Samuel trade tomorrow, and then you see Brian Thomas with a pathway to be the number 1 target in Jacksonville sometime in his career early on. Those guys all might go ahead of one of those quarterbacks that people are less excited about. And we even have not even had day 2 where the Dallas Cowboys could just pick a running back.
Yes.
And all of a sudden we're like, that guy's the 109. But my 109, Xavier Worthy, I think that's in Superflex. It's a massive win for 109 holders. It's certainly a massive win for 105 holders in single QB leagues. Unbelievable dream landing spot for Worthy. That's my biggest winner of the draft. Certainly at Player Profiler for our Dynasty rankings, he's going to move up considerably.
Yes.
Michael Penix is going to be a huge winner Dynasty rankings wise too. Bo Nix is going to be a huge winner. Like a number of guys are big winners. So love a number of those spots. I actually like the Brock Bowers landing spot a lot more than I know you do and Matt Kelley.
So I didn't hate it. Yeah. I didn't hate it, but my fear was that it limited his upside immediately because you have a solid tight end in Michael Mayer from the University of Notre Dame, and Mayer wasn't able to push aside Austin Hooper last year. So his median target share was only 9%. This was Mayer last year for the Las Vegas Raiders. There is room for Bowers to still get a 17, 18% target share and be a very fantasy viable tight end. My concern is Adams is still there. Jacoby Myers is a very respectable tight end or wide receiver. He usually commands a 20 to 23% target share, whatever team he's been on. And so when we look at what space, though, there's no wide receiver 3. Yeah. It's Brock Bowers who's going to be that third or even second option behind Adams. And then long term, from a dynasty perspective, Adams is past the age cliff. It's a matter of how long is he going to hold on, because last year, 33% target share, that's what Adams was. But there was, again, no wide receiver 3 commanding any sort of attention. So he was just getting hyper targeted. So is Bowers going to take away enough to lower the ceiling a little bit for Devontae Adams? And that may lead to the complete collapse or trade away, whatever the case may be. So
I think that the wild card in the scenario is that we have seen the Raiders attempting to be run heavy with Antonio Pierce. Zamir White has a small sample size. I think the dynasty community has sort of
he only has 4th round draft capital. He only started 4 games. He played effectively, but one of my projections for day 2, late day 2, early day 3 is the Raiders do address the running back position because they want to run the ball. They know the running back position tends to get injured, and there's no running back 2 on the team right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it could be despite Antonio Pierce wanting to pound the rock, I think that they might be a little bit of a changing of the guard and become a little bit more pass happy than we're anticipating and taking a step forward.
Yeah.
The Brock Bowers selection at 13, the fact that they signed Gardner Minshew, and the fact that they let Josh Jacobs walk without bringing in a replacement that can do the sort of things he can do.
Right.
So I think that there's a chance that there's a whole, some people hate this term, but in fantasy football, sometimes life has a way.
Yes.
And when you have a player like Brock Bowers with that sort of talent, at the end of the day, offensive coordinators are going to want to feature this sort of guy. He can do things around the line of scrimmage and do things with yak, do things on low ADOT targets, as well as be a big play target downfield. He's a very versatile player. He had rushing attempts at Georgia.
Yes.
He had 5 rushing touchdowns, I believe, as a collegiate. This
Jonnu
is
Smith 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Bowers is
but
it.
way better.
Brock Bowers is it.
Yes.
This is one of the best tight end prospects we've ever seen. I certainly am thrilled with this landing spot. I love the fact that he went 13. And I love the fact that Las Vegas told you exactly what they think about Brock Bowers with the draft capital they spent on him. 1 year after selecting Michael Mayer, they go ahead and draft Brock Bowers. We talked about Drake May and how the New England Patriots have been haunted by the Buffalo Bills for years now, watching Josh Allen. It's sort of the same thing here, where the Raiders have been absolutely steamrolled by Travis Kelce for years. They go and draft their Travis Kelce. This is a copycat league. That's it. Brock Bowers, when we look at tight ends for fantasy, we want tight ends who have a pathway to be the number 1 target on their team.
Yes.
He's not going to get more targets than Devontae Adams, but a year from now, Devontae Adams could move on. I think Brock Bowers is the number 1 target in Las Vegas in 2025.
All right, Theo, one last fancy takeaway, and then we will welcome more guests here on the stream. We've got a few of the wide receivers. We could talk about, obviously, Marvin Harrison, but there were some late wide receivers that went off the board. Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, you kind of hit on already. Yeah. Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Legette. Any fantasy takeaways that you want to bring to closure here?
Well, I mean, certainly it's a weird one with Xavier Legette where they're trading up only a few spots to get him. So it makes me think that maybe they thought he was going to go,
or there was a competition.
There was a competition to get to that pick. Like, it was a very weird trade up, but I think that there is a chance for Xavier Legette to be the alpha in Carolina. It's a great landing spot for him. And I think it showed all of the wide receivers that were drafted towards the tail end of the first round were all huge winners at the NFL Combine.
Yes.
We've seen these guys get rewarded for their athletic measurables. I think that Ricky Pearsall, unbelievable combine, next level sort of athleticism. Brian Thomas runs in the low 4.3s. You see Xavier Worthy run the 4.21. And then Xavier Legette, who's an older player who has, didn't have any production really until his last year, but still in the SEC gives you a 1,200 plus receiving yard season and backs it up with incredible size, speed, athleticism at the combine. He's got a chance to be the alpha right away. I think there's going to be a lot of mental gymnastics on, I shouldn't draft him in my rookie drafts, but he's sort of the perfect low risk bet.
Because we know that other players have just not panned out.
Yeah.
We know Terrace Marshall hasn't panned out.
Yep.
We know what Jonathan Mingo is. And even though he had a median 20% target share last year, he didn't look good.
Yeah.
He didn't look good. And so the Panthers are not giving up. They're not reinvesting in what they've seen as bad. And instead, they've went out and gotten Deontay Johnson in the trade with Pittsburgh, and they've also addressed the wide receiver position with this first-round selection of Xavier Legette. Theo, Director of Content for Player Profiler, make sure you guys are checking out the OG Fantasy.
And guys, I'll say this. Bradley Stalder is doing such a tremendous job with Player Profiler News YouTube. Some of you are watching this stream on Player Profiler News YouTube. We're streaming it to both of our YouTube networks. Do us a favor. If you're enjoying our NFL draft coverage and you're subscribed to Player Profiler YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to Player Profiler YouTube News as well. It's a great new channel. We have a lot of exciting new shows coming out on it, and Bradley's crushing it.
Yeah, the shows are going to be fantastic. We also have a lot of shorts that have been coming out minute by minute. Check it out, because a lot of the guys on the news desk, they have been crushing it in real time and getting the news out about these picks. So make sure you guys are checking out the Player Profiler News YouTube channel, and also playerprofiler.com/news gets you all of the news feed and all of the write-ups from the content creators at Player Profiler News.
Yeah. And keep crushing it, Bradley. Stick with us all draft long. And we got some cool guests coming on next.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Theo.
Thanks for having me, Bradley.
All right. We've got Alex and we've got Matt Kelley joining here to discuss their takeaways and their best picks and worst picks from round one. We did hear from Matty and we did hear from Cody, but Alex and Matt, we were watching a lot of these picks in real time.
Look at you.
I know.
Oh my goodness. What a post.
I like it. You're a good host. Thank you.
I like him.
He seems very
He's a very likable guy.
Yeah.
I was on the couch with him.
likable.
We hung out.
Very
It's good.
Very likable, very I'm sitting next to him. I don't feel like dude, he's got a really good vibe to him. Like
We're here to vibe. We're here to talk fantasy. This is
yeah,
great.
man.
It's awesome.
We're feeling great.
feeling great.
Dude,
Yeah, I'm gonna get it. We're gonna
I'm
tighten
feeling
it up.
awesome.
Let's go.
Yeah, we're gonna tighten
We're
it up.
here.
Yeah. Okay.
Look at us.
So again,
Look at us.
Look at us.
Okay.
best pick.
Yeah, best pick.
Best pick has to be Xavier Worthy. Is that a? Did they already
He
say
is
that?
worthy. He is worthy.
He's worthy of hype.
Yes.
There's a rare worthy of hype,
Yes.
and we had a vigorous debate with Josh Larky on. I had it on the stream and live as the pick came in, and we've crunched some numbers. We showed him the breakout finder data. We showed him the yards per route run data. He is a true target earner.
Was Josh convinced?
We also showed him some like actual plays.
Right. We showed him tape.
Tape.
We showed him numbers. We showed him tape. We showed him,
Just trying to show the analytics guy some tape.
and I don't want to speak for Josh, but I can say with certainty that his opinion has shifted on Xavier Worthy. There's a new appreciation for Xavier Worthy as a target earner, a big play guy. My comp for him is fast Brandon Cooks, which I think is the right comp and probably the best comp you're going to hear because he is a technician. And if he was by himself in an offense like Oregon State, he would have put up huge numbers.
Yes.
So the one question that remains is why he didn't have a big counting stat season at Texas. Alex, you cover the Longhorns for Orange Bloods famously. So can you explain why he wasn't a mega prolific receiver at any point at Texas?
Yeah, well, Texas, whenever Sark came in, so Xavier Worthy was one of these recruits that was one of the ones that committed after, there's 2 signing days now, right? There's the first signing day, the second signing day, and Xavier Worthy was one that came in after that, right? So he's from Bakersfield, California. I think that during that time, we still had the government's cockamamie response to COVID, especially in California, right? To where he didn't get to play his senior season. And so he was taking his time with different schools. Once he came to Texas, the first year that he came and played in Steve Sarkisian's offense, he was the most prolific freshman wide receiver that Texas has ever seen, ever in history.
Ever.
And towards the end of that season, he broke his hand. And through the 2022 season, he dealt with a broken hand. And whenever people talk about, like, I think it was a 10.9% drop rate that he had in that season.
That'll do it. You can't catch balls if your hand is broken.
It kind of had to do with that. Xavier Worthy in 2022 played with a broken hand. In 2023, what happened was Xavier Worthy comes in as the wide receiver 1 for Texas. And not only does Adonai Mitchell come in from Georgia, but we also have Jatavian Sanders
coming up and becoming a big part of the offense.
Mm.
Jonathan Brooks, the running back, coming up and being a great receiving weapon out of the offense. And Jordan Whittington, who people don't realize out of the slot was – you might not think about him, but he was at the combine. Like, he got a combine invite. He's
Right.
he's
going to be an NFL player. Yeah.
He's an NFL player,
Yeah.
right? You have him to deal with.
There's a lot of target competition in Texas.
You
That's
have
the bottom
all
line.
these things, man. But
Yeah.
you look at Xavier Worthy, man, a dude with a freshman breakout before he even. I think he broke out technically before he even turned 18 years old.
Yeah, he actually, in the Breakout Finder, it puts a premium on freshman year production, and you'll be pleasantly surprised to see where he is in the Breakout Finder. And it was funny because Josh helped design the Breakout Finder. Then he,
his own tool has betrayed him.
Yes, he leaves, and then he comes back, and then the Breakout Finder is showing him just how good Xavier Worthy is, and it kind of sort of forced him to do a bit of a deeper dive. Anyway, this is all behind the scenes. You could ask him yourself, I'm sure, in some sort of AMA, how your journey to appreciating Xavier Worthy. But he's there now, trust me. And so the big debate now, I think, we're past Brian Thomas. Okay, Brian Thomas, is he the wide receiver 5 for you? Or
until we find out landing spots, right?
Okay, he is. Okay,
yeah.
So lock him in as wide receiver 5. Lock in Worthy as wide receiver 4. But in a rookie draft, though, if you have to actually make a pick, we don't know where the running backs are landing yet. So there's a big open question of who's going to go to Dallas,
right?
Where, how many second round running backs are there going to be? Is it just going to be Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks, or will there be more? What if Braylon Allen, does he go to Dallas? Then what happens? So there's a lot of questions about running back and where you would go running back. But I think that it's safe to say Worthy would go ahead of all the running backs.
Worthy went to the Chiefs, man.
He's on the Chiefs.
He's on the Chiefs.
Xavier Worthy just got his NFL connection from Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And it's to me, you talk about the big three, and we had a big three coming into tonight. It's been the big three the whole time. It has been Marvin Harrison Jr. It has been Malik Neighbors. It has been Roma Dunze, right? And all these guys in a vacuum. If I were starting an NFL team today, if I was a GM, right, and trying to put a team together, I would take those guys over Xavier Worthy, who at the combine weighed 165. But I think what people don't realize is that he played a little bit heavier than that, and he lost a little bit of weight to get down to that 140.
Well, players train for that type of thing. Yes.
So I think he played more the kind of the 170. You think about that, man. Devontae Smith is 170 something. The rest of these guys are. How many of these guys have this nuclear ability to be able to say the top?
Deshaun Jackson on a team with Patrick Mahomes.
No, it's not. It's like it's a Tyreek Hill. It's a Deshaun Jackson. It's a T.Y. Hilton. It is a Tyreek Hill. It's that kind of thing going to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
All right, so we have to talk about the chat right now. The chat thinks that Alex is absolutely hammered. The chat is saying, "Take your keys." The chat believes that the chat thinks I'm furious. The chat knows that I'm a perfectionist and believes that you're tanking the stream because you're absolutely out of your mind.
Well, maybe. What the fuck am I doing here?
And I would remind the chat that Alex is here for free. He's not being paid. He's here as a guest of Player Profiler and Roto Underworld because he's awesome. He's one of my favorite people in this world.
And I had no idea that this shit was we're gonna have to do an after show.
It's 12:50 at night. We've had a great time. And if you're not having a great time with us, I'm sorry that you can't appreciate the great time that is the NFL draft and all the times we're having. It was great.
And share it with someone who would enjoy it.
But trust me, Alex is perfect. Alex is doing great, and he's perfect right now.
Fine.
I just want to say that. And
I'm fine.
This is real.
This was great analysis.
This is great analysis.
So
he is.
Come at him.
It just so we're clear.
That's right.
Alex is from Orange Bloods, famously.
the biggest cowboy Texas Longhorns blog. Would we call it a blog
No,
or a
Orange Bloods-
media organization?
Orange Bloods is the largest college football fan site in the entire world.
There it is. See, you
Boom.
said that so coherently.
I think the chat is the one that's
Look
strong.
at you. I feel like what happened was you were basically
That's right.
you saw that the chat was challenging you and you
Yeah.
stepped up.
You did.
And now you're
Stepped up.
super
I love it.
coherent and you're on it.
This is it.
It's amazing. It's
I'm
like
gonna
it's,
speak-
dude, it's mind
yeah.
over matter, dude. It's mind over matter, and in your case, it's mind over liquor, and it's great. We love, dude, love it, love having.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, you're in a rookie draft, okay, and the first 3 receivers are off the board. This is a single quarterback rookie draft. We're gonna get into super flex and 2 QB.
So
don't worry.
we're talking.
So now the
quarterback.
big debate is gonna be Bowers, non-tight end premium. I get it. If it's FFPC, we love the FFPC. You're going Bowers. Okay, you're going Bowers all day.
Bowers
When-
tight end premium.
Bowers
Well, like-
at 4 is the easy pick. But
Okay,
in
so
single quarterback, non-tight end premium, I will just tell you, I'll just come out and say it. I want Worthy.
I want Worthy as
F-
well.
So non tight end premium,
Yeah. No, Bowers
One-
is premium.
one-
Bowers is great.
one quarterback.
One quarterback.
One quarterback.
No tight end premium.
Oh, okay, all right. So now after tonight,
Yeah.
it goes Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yes.
for Dynasty,
Yes.
right? Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, and then you have a big decision to make it for between Brock Bowers and Xavier Worthy.
Yes.
You have a big decision to make. And we could probably
It is a decision, but there's a right decision to be made, and I think it's Xavier Worthy.
I'm not sure that the right decision is Brock Bowers in that spot. I
Here
think
we
it
go.
might be Worthy.
It is Worthy. It is Worthy because Worthy has top 5 upside. And
Yes.
I think my theory is that the tight end position broke people's brains last year, where you saw 2 rookie tight ends go, were Kincaid top 10, right?
Yeah, Kincaid
And
went top
was-
10. He didn't pay off though.
Was he a top 10 producer?
No.
No? Dalton Kincaid?
Laporta and
Laporta was.
PPR was like tight end too.
I know.
Kincaid zeroed out a ton because of Dawson Knox. It was
Okay.
gross. Like the counting stats at the end were okay.
They were good, yeah.
The
But
counting
Brock
stats
Bowers
were okay,
isn't the
but
same kind of guy as the rest of those.
Regardless, okay. Even if we didn't have Laporta, Kincaid would have been like, "Oh wow, this is a night."
Yeah.
We were so accustomed for so many years to getting no production from tight ends in
The
their rookie year.
Yep.
You had the second half of Rob Gronkowski was great, famously, but now they get Laporta, putting up top 3 tight end numbers, and then Kincaid gave you weeks. Let's just say that, okay?
Yeah.
And he was big for many weeks. So there's this new normal with the tight end position that Bowers is such a premium prospect. He's gonna come right
Bowers
in.
versus Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I think that's the conversation, not really about Worthy. I think we're way past that. I think it's going to be Brian Thomas landed pretty well.
yes.
He landed pretty well in a situation that the bottom line is he went to a place that didn't have an alpha. Say what you want
With a
about Trevor
great
Lawrence.
quarterback. I mean, dude.
Great.
Yes.
Trevor Lawrence is not great. Trevor Lawrence, you can set your
Lawrence-
watch by 17 and a half fantasy points a game.
Trevor Lawrence is he hasn't shown that he's great.
He is the
Yeah.
quarterback 13 every year.
He's pretty boy Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
That's my take. That's my
He
take.
struggles. He struggles with accuracy on the perimeter. He's not that guy. He's
Samson.
not going to be 3 years. We
No,
know he's
I
not
mean,
that guy.
I understand.
It's
for-
been
for-
3 years.
I understand for fantasy, like Trevor Lawrence is a guy who I am fine attaching my
Yes.
We also know
fantasy
what the
fortunes to
organization
as
can
far as
offer to Trevor Lawrence, and they're not going to elevate him. Like there's not an elevator
well,
that exists.
I'm
with
just saying.
the coaching and the ancillary pieces.
My position is
dude, we fucking look around the league and just see these other quarterbacks, and you say Trevor
I
Lawrence is the
don't
one-
think passing on Xavier Worthy
Ooh.
is a good idea
Oh,
because
all right.
Xavier Worthy can absolutely beat you. He can
Yes.
beat you, and he can absolutely make you. I don't
Yes.
think that there's a worry with Brian Thomas. Like I'm looking at
I'm
Brian.
not
I'm like,
saying that.
Brian Thomas can't beat me.
I'm not
Brian
saying that.
Thomas is not going to be the guy that I'm like
No.
killing myself because I had no exposure to.
No,
Okay,
no,
so
no.
that's where Worthy goes off the board. Now I think it's time to pivot to running back. That's what I'm saying.
If at 56 we get to the
Yeah.
Cowboys, we get a Jonathan Brooks, we get
Right.
a Braylon Allen, we get
I'm
a Jalen
very
Wright,
happy.
We get
You know,
right.
Leggett going in the first round. This
I
is
don't
great.
care.
No, but what I'm saying is these receivers will displace some running backs. There's going to be some running backs that don't land that great. Like let's say Braylon Allen goes to Buffalo. Right, that's not going to be great for anybody. It's going to be bad for Allen. It's going to be bad for, but it's still Buffalo. It's still a great offense. A lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
Throw
Right.
him in there.
So
I think that would be sick.
it'd be pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So for some people, wouldn't like that,
Right.
right? But I'd be like, yeah, I'll take Braylon. That's great, especially if it goes second round. Let's see if it goes third round, still good.
Yeah.
You know, so there's going to be some second round, but especially some third round running backs we like, right? That you'll be able to get because Leggett, and they're just getting the first round capital. And there's going to be plenty of fantasy sites saying, "Oh, first round
Because
capital,
he is a
first
first
round
round-
capital, chase the
Draft
first round
capital is
capital,
everything.
draft capital is
Dude,
everything."
I mean-
he's going to get targets, those things,
Counterpoint, Kadarius
and then
Toney.
I'll take exactly the Kadarius Tonys, and I will take that third round running back every time over those
Yes.
guys.
Xavier Leggett. What do you think? Where do
I
we
think
even
he-
where
I
do we even
think that-
have him?
I think that there's I thought it was an open question. I think you're pretty sure that the worst GM in the league is on the Falcons.
Yes.
Okay.
Terry Fontenot is the worst.
Well, I had an open debate because I thought, well, how could you say with any kind of certainty that he's definitely worse than the GM of the Panthers?
Then Dan Morgan.
I mean, Dan Morgan drafted. I mean, he whiffed on C.J. Stroud, and then
but he's what Dan Morgan will say is he was in the room and he wasn't part of all that. Like it's now the new thing where he's now in charge.
okay, right.
But he was in the room.
He wasn't there last year when they drafted. Like
He was certainly there.
A big receiver that can't separate.
He was.
So
he
then,
was
but
certainly
now
there.
he's definitely in the room this year when they move
Well,
up
he's in charge
to
this year.
draft just the same guy again.
Mingo 2.0.
Yeah. He wasn't 100% responsible for Mingo. He's now 100% responsible for Leggett, right?
Yes.
Right.
Oh,
So-
yes.
Okay. So,
That's his pick.
And we know
so we have Bryce
we
Young,
know that
Mingo, Leggett.
We know Mingo's bad. We know Terrace Marshall bad.
This is a really bad situation.
bad
And don't
bunch
forget,
of
it's not
dudes.
just Bryce Young. It's all the picks you had to give up
Yes.
sending to Chicago.
The DJ Moore.
So to me, it's not a slam dunk that
Mm.
Fontenot's the worst GM when you look at what's going on with Carolina. And to move up to get that fifth year option on a guy that's 24 years old is embarrassing.
Yeah.
So what wow, congratulations. You got a guy that's 29. I mean, I get it. It's going to take his fifth year to break out, but that's not the reason to draft him because you think he's on the 5-year plan like he was in college. Get out of here.
because that was
Hometown boy.
Like
Right from around here.
Adonai Mitchell was objectively just a better prospect across the board. You even said he was the best receiver to be in the transfer portal last year in college.
There was
So
no
everybody
question.
knew it. It's like no question.
Ask George Pickens about Adnan Mitchell.
And I even like guys like Malachi Corley. There's a lot of receivers that I prefer to a guy like Leggett. And so it's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing when a player that doesn't have any sort of legitimate first round grade anywhere except on this one board.
Was
And then they
traded up
trade
to-
up. The beauty is they traded up. They traded up for Bryce Young. Now they're trading up for this guy. It was one of the most
one
awkward.
spot for 50
Yeah,
spots.
Here's the other thing that there's a lot of maneuvering that happens late Thursday night into the morning and then all day on
Yeah.
Friday.
Yep.
That's why you want the 201. You want the 401.
Yeah.
People talk about the 401 being a
Yeah.
really great pick because
Yeah.
there's a lot of it actually is like
People get left in the wall. Like
They dang-
I mean,
you
like the
dangle
babies
it.
get
You
thrown
let
out
it-
with the
Yep.
bathwater. Yeah,
it's
man.
it's one of the better. Yeah, the 401's a great pick to
Yeah.
dangle, and you actually can do a bigger deal out
Yep.
of it.
No,
The
absolutely.
201's an awesome pick to have.
Yes.
And to have just no respect for the 201.
Mm.
And it's to be like, I'm actually going to pay a guy more than I have to.
When I've already been the worst team in the NFL.
It's just, it was bizarre.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, master stroke for again, who are the teams that won?
Bills.
All the teams that traded down.
Yes,
Bills had a double trade down.
they did.
If you traded down, you won.
Well, the best picks were maybe the ones that were not made in the first round, the Bills. Matt, Alex, it's been great having you on. We're going to have some more content coming to you straight from Pinckney, Michigan, here on the Roto Underworld Network. Don't go anywhere. We've got a message for you from the Podfather.
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from PlayerProfiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
All right, it's Bradley Stalder, Josh Larky here. Just a couple days ago, Josh and I met for the first time, and yes, we also have it now on video. At JLarky Tweets on the X Machine. Make sure you guys are following Josh. We're going to talk for a brief moment about some fantasy winners and losers, and we're going to have a change of pace. Josh is going to give us some rapid fire winners and some rapid fire losers. I'm also going to give my feedback on whether I agree or disagree. So Josh, take it away.
Thank you. Bradley, I am sick and tired of long, nuanced discussion when at this point it's 1 a.m. We've had 30 minutes max to process these picks after the draft. I'm ready to give some rapid fire takes. First fantasy winner, Daniel Jones.
Oh, let's go. Danny Dimes.
Bradley, I'm a numbers guy. If we're talking percentage, nobody had a bigger percentage increase in their dynasty value than Daniel Jones. It went up 2, 3, 4x.
Yes.
A quarterback goes to the Giants at pick 6. You can borderline drop Daniel Jones in dynasty. Now, suddenly, he has a playmaking weapon, Malik Neighbors. Daniel Jones is actually kind of good in the short area of the field.
Yes.
That is where Neighbors wins. Jones does have mobility. We saw even with Kyler Murray, the mobility is diminished off the ACL, but still, there was mobility.
He still retained a significant amount of mobility. He still had rushing touchdowns.
So you agree?
Yes, I agree. Big time. Malik Neighbors slots in as the wide receiver 1 very easily over Wan'Dale Robinson. We know we don't have an official word yet about Darren Waller retiring, but there's been some strong rumblings about that. Regardless, Neighbor, even if Waller is there, Neighbors wide receiver 1.
Big winners. It's got to be Josh Palmer and or Quentin Johnston and or whichever wide receiver the Chargers take at pick 37. We have 2 absolute ass kickers at tackle on this offensive line. We've got Justin Herbert at quarterback. He's going to have all the time in the world to find the open receiver. Sure, the pass rate might be 47, 48, 49%, but
Justin Herbert, quarterback 24.
Someone's going to have to catch those 500 pass attempts. I think there's a chance Quentin Johnston has a little bit of a rebound, assuming they move him to the slot. We know Josh Palmer's been fantasy relevant at times when he gets force-fed targets out of necessity. Yes. Boy, would I love someone like Ladd McConkey, pick 37, a guy that can earn targets at a high rate on the field.
Yes,
that would be beautiful.
That's a dream scenario. I love it. I love that they didn't address it right off the bat. And Josh Palmer, very fantasy relevant, and I think can be the wide receiver 2 on the team. I know you still are holding out hope on Quentin Johnston. We'll see.
Just a little bit. I've got 3 more for you. One I'm going to skip over. It's Xavier Worthy to the Chiefs. We don't need to beat the dead horse. Another one is Brian Thomas. Some people out there do not like the landing spot, or they do not like Brian Thomas. Folks, Christian Kirk could be gone after this year. And then suddenly you're like, oh, we've got Gabe Davis on the outside, not a target earner. Evan Engram stinks, drops passes, but he does command some targets at tight end, some targets.
Yes.
And then we've got Brian Thomas. We still believe in Trevor Lawrence. This is a team whose defense is still decimated. There's going to be a lot of pass attempts. I am very, very excited about Brian Thomas.
Yes.
Great draft capital, too.
He did get the good draft capital. I don't think he's as much of a winner as you do. At least in year one, I think Evan Engram and Christian Kirk are still going to eat into that development. So I am concerned on that front, but you can't argue with the draft capital and the fact that Jacksonville went out of their way to make sure that he was the pick.
Yes. Final one, Ricky Pearsall. Surprise, round 1 draft capital, pick 31 to the Niners. I mean, this screams to me that Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel will not be on this roster come the start of the season. We love an embarrassment of riches on offense or on defense, but I mean, come on. Do we really think that in the state of the NFL, with so many teams having depleted offensive weapons, that no team out there is going to throw out a trade offer that the Niners like? There is just mathematically no chance that Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey can all eat in this offense.
Yes.
Big winner of Brock Purdy, simply because even if a Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel trade goes down, he's insulated. They have a new receiver coming in. But still, big winner, Ricky Pearsall, unexpected round 1 draft capital.
This is raising the flag. If there was the biggest flag in the world that the San Francisco 49ers are going to move on from one of Ayuk or Deebo, this is it. There was some rumbling earlier this evening before the draft started that it was Deebo. Brandon Ayuk is possibly moving on. This is very much a signal that is coming to fruition here, probably within the next 48 hours. It wouldn't surprise any of us. Josh, hit us with some of your fantasy losers.
It's got to be Kirk Cousins in Dynasty. He's mid-30s. The Falcons drafted Michael Penix. I cannot – when I do the Dominator, I might have to do a nice little 5-minute monologue about the demise of the Atlanta Falcons, but the Cliff Notes version is essentially 2022. They take Drake London at pick 8. And they decide not to pass. Then in 2023, they take Bijan Robinson at pick 8, and they decide not to use Bijan Robinson. Tyler Algier is getting more goal line carries than him. I don't know what's going on. Then in the offseason, they pay Kirk Cousins $180 million with about $100 million guaranteed. So it's like, okay, we've committed to the quarterback. It's a weak division. This makes sense. Let's go all in while the division's weak. We've got a 2-year window with Cousins. And then they take Michael Penix at pick 8, a player that I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a single draft analyst who had Michael Penix in their top 8, their top 10, their top 15, top 20. Hell, even top 30 was often a stretch when it came to almost every respected draft analyst. Michael Penix, pick 8. Great for him to get the draft capital. I don't know how long he's sitting, but all I know is that the perceived value at the very least of Cousins diminished when the potential successor was taken at pick 8.
So with Michael Penix, I do want to push back a little bit because right before the national championship, there was a lot of hype about Michael Penix. Is he going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft because of how he played leading up to the national championship? And then it just looked bad. Like you watch the film, he just did not look like a winning type of quarterback in the biggest stage against Michigan. Sure. And that's where it kind of just the balloon deflated. And now you have someone at least who believes in pre-national championship game, Michael Penix. Maybe that's going to lead to the same demise for the Atlanta Falcons.
Bradley, a question for you and your listeners.
Yes.
Has there ever been a quarterback who panned out who played 6 years in college? I don't know the answer to that, but I would assume the answer is no.
You know, that is a very good question.
With 2 ACL tears.
If I'm a betting man, I would bet that this is probably not going to work out for Michael Penix. But there are 2 thoughts for me. One is that this is an insurance policy, a very expensive insurance policy,
but one that, if pans out, can still give the pathway for a championship if Kirk Cousins, goes down. The insurance at the quarterback position has been so necessary over the last couple of years. We just saw Aaron Rodgers go down with an Achilles injury, and that completely destroyed the Jets season. Like, the Jets season was over after just a couple snaps.
You need to be one of 32 teams to win the Super Bowl. Why would you want to hamstring yourself and say, we want to be one of 32, but we're also going to double tap kind of the most expensive position?
Yes.
Given that Kirk Cousins just got $100 million guaranteed, which folks out there, Amon-Ra St. Brown set the receiver record for most guaranteed money. It is about 25% less than Kirk Cousins.
Well, let's keep hitting it. Just a couple more minutes. Josh has been crushing it here at Player Profile. Make sure you guys are checking out The Dominator with Josh Larky. It airs weekly.
Yeah, we don't have a set date, folks.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it doesn't air on Tuesdays. It does air weekly, though. So make sure you guys are checking out The Dominator with Josh Larky on the Player Profiler Network. Who are some other fantasy losers?
I've got 3 more for you. This one's obvious, so I won't talk about it. Michael Mayer. Turns out when Brock Bowers, maybe the best tight end prospect of all time, goes to your team and you have significantly worse draft capital and didn't perform as a rookie, we are concerned.
Yep.
Another interesting one, Keenan Allen.
Yes.
He's already in his 30s. I believe he's 31 right now. I think he turns 32 either during the season or right after the season. I think what you're hoping for if you're a Keenan Allen enthusiast pre-draft is that he's great this year and then startable in fantasy next year.
Yes. 2025.
Suddenly we have Romo Dunze there, and I think Romo Dunze is really good. I don't think he's as good as Keenan Allen right now. I'm not sure if DJ Moore is as good as Keenan Allen right now, but all I know is that they are both good enough right now to at least take targets away from Keenan Allen.
Yes.
Best case scenario, Keenan Allen leads the team in targets at a diminished target share.
Yes.
We simply have to be concerned.
It's now within the range of outcomes that Keenan Allen busts year 1 in Chicago. That was not the case before the Rome Odunze pick. Keenan Allen had a 30% target share, median target share last year. DJ Moore, median 30% target share last year. Cole Kmet, 20% target share last year. So you have 80% of targets just from those 3, and then you add in DeAndre Swift. You have some other running backs rotating in. You have the backup tight ends. And so you already had wide receivers and other pieces who are going to eat into each other. Then you put another player like Roma Dunze into that. Keenan Allen is in jeopardy this year.
Last one for you. I am concerned. I love the draft capital. I hate. I've talked about this a few times. I was terrified for whoever went to New England. I thought it would be Drake May. It was Drake May.
Yes.
And here's what I'll say. I'll preface with here's the positive scenario. If Drake May survives his rookie year, I will be a buyer.
Yes.
Almost regardless of the market, simply because the Patriots are learning what he does well, what he does poorly, and they're going to actually build around him after this year. The concern is the offensive line is not where you want it to be.
Yes.
His wide receiver 1 right now might be Demario Douglas. And you might be like, oh, his wide receiver 1's coming back from an ACL tear. If you believe that, great. I'm glad
that's
that you're
Kendrick
bullish
Bourne
on
for those
Kendrick
at
Bourne.
home. Kendrick Bourne at home.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bullish on Kendrick Bourne then. Maybe you're bullish on Hunter Henry. This is such an atrocious situation. It's a team that might also just play slow in general because when you have no talent, there's no way that you can possess the ball. There's no way that anything can go on. We could see 450 pass attempts from May. I think the saving grace could be the Daniel Jones's like 700 rushing yard season from 2 years ago is in the range of outcomes. My pre-draft comp for Drake May was less polished Justin Herbert.
Yes.
With Daniel Jones's legs. I think on the Patriots, I think what would I say his expectation for year 1 is running around like a chicken with his head cut off for 2,500 passing yards, 7 passing touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and 700 rushing yards with 2 scores. I really think it's going to be brutal for Drake May, the kind of landing spot that can truly set his development back to a place that you cannot recover from.
Well, that is disaster zone for Drake May. Josh, it's been a pleasure talking winners and losers for fantasy. in an immediate reaction to round one. Make sure you guys are following him on the X Machine at JLarky Tweets. Next up, we've got Memphis Young also going to talk to us about some Dynasty right now. There we go. Thanks, Josh. Now, Memphis, two things about Memphis. One is that he's joined me on the Stack Hunters podcast, which airs every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's Best Ball Podcast, and I bring in experts in the fantasy field to discuss stacking strategy and more. Maybe we do some live drafts, etc. We talked about fantasy strategies this offseason with Memphis, and Memphis, it's an absolute pleasure getting to know you over the last couple months, having you join the Player Profiler team. But Memphis's emphasis is on Dynasty because, of course, he and Jerry host.
Can't beat Jerry.
Can't beat Jerry.
Cannot beat Jerry.
They host the Dynasty Warzone. And so make sure you guys are checking out the Dynasty Warzone as well. We're going to dive into a few Dynasty takes, Dynasty fantasy winners and Dynasty fantasy losers. Memphis, this was a lot of fun. You just came in today. It's been a whirlwind. Right before the draft, you arrived, but you've had a little bit of time to process. There have been guests coming on here. What are your immediate thoughts? Who are some big Dynasty winners?
I think Bo Nix is a big Dynasty winner.
Yes.
For me, I know people are somewhat concerned, not concerned with Michael Penix Jr. I think Bo Nix is in a good landing spot. I think Marvin Mims is going to be the beneficiary. I wasn't super stoked about Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham, but this is clearly the guy. And this is Sean Payton's guy. And I think those two can grow together the same way that Joe Burrow had T. Higgins. And I'm not saying that Marvin Mims and Bo Nix are going to be Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, but there's a big opportunity for those guys to form that connection. And I think it also keeps Cortland Sutton around. So I don't love the offensive line in Denver, but I do love the head coach. The weapons are okay. And the joke or the knock on Bo Nix is that he throws the ball sideways instead of down the field. And that's great for bubble screens for guys like Marvin Mims. And keep an eye on Javonte Williams for the passing game. Running back in the passing game.
Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, Samaje Perine, all, going to be involved. And last year they were involved. That is part of the Sean Payton offense, is involving your running backs pretty regularly in the
tight end.
And the tight ends.
Could be a Greg Dulcich.
Yeah, who's going to be the tight end? Because it felt like Dulcich had the opportunity last year, and it just didn't sit. And when Sean Payton has his guys picked out, I wonder if they also address tight end in this draft too.
They could take is it Jatavion or Javion?
Sanders.
Sanders, maybe, but Ben Samot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of guys, but I'd love it to be Adam Troutman, but it's not going to be Adam. Not going to be Adam.
Product of the University of Dayton. Go Flyers.
I want to bring up a guy that you and the Podfather and Alex were discussing, in Trevor Lawrence.
Yes.
He's a winner.
He's a winner.
They are trying to add around him. I'm neutral on Brian Thomas. I like the landing spot. Calvin Ridley leaves behind 136 targets that he can chop up with
22% target share.
Yeah, that he can chop those up even if he gets half. That's 70 receptions between him and Gabe Davis. That's not too shabby for a rookie. I just hope this is the piece that he needs, he being Trevor Lawrence, to be able to grow. Because, when you were talking, I was like mouthing the words to you. It's like, so far, Trevor Lawrence has been Jared Goff with better hair. And that's kind of how I see him. And he wasn't drafted to be Jared Goff with better hair. So I'm always going to be a fan of organizations that surround their quarterbacks with talent. And Brian Thomas, in their opinion, was the best one there. And I want to go to Minnesota.
Yeah,
not literally. That's a. I like JJ McCarthy, and I think he's a winner.
Yes.
Do not be surprised if he gets the Patrick Mahomes treatment. He has never thrown for 300 pass attempts in a season. And Kevin O'Connell threw for almost 600 a season the last 2 years.
Yeah, O'Connell and the Vikings have been among the highest pass rate in the NFL, so the pass attempts have been there.
And so
I think it'll be a good spot. I think Sam Darnold has matured. He'll probably get to Halloween. And I mean, and it could be less. It could be more. But I just don't see them rushing him in. He's the youngest of the quarterbacks as far as it's either him or Drake May. And I want to clarify something from earlier, even though I want to stick on J.J. McCarthy. I said Drake May was going to be the bust of this class. It's actually Jaden Daniels.
Ooh, okay.
We can get into that.
Fantasy loser? Would you call him a fantasy loser?
I would not. I just think that you're going to get at least 2 busts in this class, if not more, because they were all forced into the first round. I mean, look at the class of 2021. Trevor Lawrence is kind of the last man.
Well, we
standing.
saw 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks. There's going to be what? Half
3
of them bust?
3 are going to bust. So if you're the Vikings and you really want this to work, it didn't hurt Jordan Love to sit for a while. It didn't hurt Will Levis to sit for a while. He came in and had a great first game. Another winner, Will Levis. They got a tackle.
Yes, he did.
I love that move. But back to J.J. McCarthy. I mean, long term, him and Roma Dunze are in the same category for me for Dynasty. These are the guys that they're going to get overdrafted, or they're going to get drafted where they should have been drafted. And then we're going to turn around and say, oh, they're not performing by week 6. I need to trade them in Dynasty. And that's when you can scoop in and get them, because an impatient GM or someone who needs immediate production will leave those guys. They'll be just kind of frustrated because they're not getting that volume.
Yes.
Maybe not even starting in the case of McCarthy. And they'll create a nice buying opportunity. Remember, it's Dynasty. You're going to have them for a while.
We're here for making the buys.
That's right.
Any other fantasy losers?
Losers, yeah. I just got to keep pulling up. Josh mentioned Komet and Keenan Allen.
Yes.
I was really caught off guard by the Twitter. No, I shouldn't say that's Twitter. I was really caught off guard by the reaction to when the Chargers let Keenan Allen go. He's 31 or 32, making $30 million. And is he going to be there next year? Now, he's enough of a blocker that you could get a cheap deal, but he was a loser. You got to consider Sam Darnold a loser, even though I'm a Sam Darnold's believer. Are you? I'm a reformed.
Reformed believer.
Reformed believer. George Pickens was a winner.
Yes.
They didn't
because there was a lot of chatter about Brian Thomas possibly going to Pittsburgh.
The good thing about the wide receivers, I'm just kind of bouncing all over the place, but with the winners is that so many wide receivers are gone. So we kind of know a lot of them. I mean,
just A.D. Mitchell, you got Ladd McConkey still left, maybe a couple
guys.
Others, and then there's a teardrop.
So a guy like Khalil Shakur so far has been a winner.
Yes.
So now he could be a loser tomorrow. We could have this exact same exercise tomorrow. And when they take Adonai Mitchell at 33, we're going to be like, it changes it. So I didn't get too big into the losers. I had some neutrals.
Okay.
A little bit different. I'm neutral on Malik Neighbors and Roma Dunze. I like the landing spot long term. You just got to have patience.
Yes.
Roma Dunze is a great pick if you're in a rebuild.
Yes, I agree.
He's someone that's probably going to go 107, 108. Maybe he even goes 109. I could see where you'll see some Xavier Worthy.
But in year one, we're talking about target, just what are the target rocks? Ultimately the target shares. You've got DJ Moore, who had 30% target share last year. You had Keenan Allen, who had 30% target share last year. You have DeAndre Swift, who has brought in a 10% target share. Cole Kmet had 20. Where is Roma Dunze going to be? Right, well, all of them are going to eat into each other.
The one thing that, if you have any of these Bears guys at all in Dynasty, before we determine anyone a winner or loser, we don't know what the offense is going to look like because it's a Shane Waldron offense as opposed to Luke Getsy, who's now in Las Vegas with the Raiders. And we don't know who Caleb Williams is going to click with. If he really locks in and likes Rome
right away.
It could be Rome right away. We're basically giving Keenan Allen all this work based on his relationship with Justin Herbert.
Right.
And a Kellen Moore offense. And that's not exactly the way that it has to go. So I wouldn't let that sway me off of a Dunze. And then I'm neutral on Neighbors. I wanted to be a Daniel Jones believer. Are you a Daniel Jones believer?
Short term for fantasy.
Short term, sure.
I'm fine. Short term because last year pre-ACL, he had a 24% rush share. like 24%. And
Right.
it was him and it was Saquon Barkley. And when it's quarterbacks getting that kind of rushing, and this was not new for Daniel Jones either,
Right.
you know, in terms of what he had been able to do. He was essentially like cheaper Josh Allen and worse Josh Allen, but like, you know, he was cheaper, worse, but he had similar skill sets to what Josh Allen could do. And so looking at what he's essentially got one more solid year on his contract, and
No
he's-
guaranteed money after this year.
no guaranteed money after this year, but we do know that now he has this year, and then we'll see what happens.
He's a guy that you can get for QB3 prices in Dynasty that has QB10 upside
Yes.
in his range of outcomes. And we act like he's super inaccurate. He's a career 64.6% passing completion guy.
It's just
So-
his leading receiver 3 of the last 4 years has been Darius Slayton.
Exactly. So that's going to allow, and that's what's always good about adding an offensive lineman or a wide receiver is that when you add that stud,
Yes.
it's like Slater and the Chargers is going to be able to play down a level because they drafted Joe Alt.
Yes.
All those receivers and receiving options in New York are going to be able to play down a level because you have Malik Neighbors there
Yes.
now. You have a real stud, a wide
You have
receiver,
an alpha target commander. You have someone that is your go-to.
which now those guys may never win with volume, but for best ball or
Yeah.
you know what you do, it makes Darius Slayton a little bit more interesting.
Yes.
Maybe a Wandale Robinson, another
Okay.
year removed from the injury.
rising tide lifts all
A
boats.
rising tide lifts all
Let's
boats.
go.
And I will leave you with a winning situation that we're not talking enough about. Everybody wants the Cowboys to draft a running back, right? Tomorrow.
I think they should go wait till round 3.
The New York Giants are a great spot for Jonathan Brooks.
Yes.
They brought in Devin Singletary. They have no more Saquon Barkley. Singletary is the term the Podfather invented was a meat shield. He's enough of a meat shield to allow Jonathan Brooks to fully recover from the
Yes.
ACL, take over similar to the workload that like a Breece Hall had last year.
Yes.
And that's a great RB landing spot for Dynasty.
And Singletary proved last year that he was able to handle that type of workload, a 56% median rush share for Devin Singletary last year. So a player that can handle the rock.
And a guy
until-
that for what you do
Yes.
with best ball is a guy that you should still be drafting. And then for what we do with Dynasty, there's going to be someone to come in and will eventually be the long-term solution. But
Yes.
I don't think that's going to be a bad backfield.
And Singletary can very much be a winner out of this.
Absolutely.
Memphis has been great.
Hey, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me
Make
on.
sure you guys are checking out the Dynasty Warzone, Memphis Young,
And old
and-
Jerry.
and Jerry. And Jerry. Can't
Jerry.
forget Jerry.
Don't forget Jerry. All right. Thank you, Bradley.
Yeah, definitely. Last but certainly not least, Dario Offstein here to talk projections because y'all are here for that, right? That's part of this, giving this feedback, diving into the data. Dario and I have been, I have my own projections as well, but Dario officially does the projections for Player Profiler, and we've been going back and forth debating, but I'm also a big believer that iron sharpens iron. That's something over the last 4 years that I've been in this industry and working with Billy Muzio in projections as well, that this dialogue back and forth makes us better fantasy players. And so, Dario and I have spent time during the draft talking about target shares and how it may impact other players. So Dario, let's get into a few of the projections. We'll start with, were there any
6 quarterbacks,
There were 6 quarterbacks.
7 receivers, and Brock Bowers? There's a lot of ways we can attack.
There
this.
is a lot. Let's start with can you start us with a projection that surprised you, one that stood out to you, or maybe you weren't expecting?
I wasn't expecting to make a projection for Ricky Pearsall tonight.
Okay.
I'll tell you that much. And right now he's really hard to fit into the 49ers offense. I mean, this is kind of one where I think when you're looking at projections, you have to give yourself some room for error. The target share doesn't have to add up to 100% today because there's a very heavy implication that one of the 2 starting receivers from last season will be traded. I mean, we keep right now Deebo Samuel around a 22% projected target share for Deebo, 23.5% projected for Ayuk. Very likely one of those guys is not there at the start of this season. So I mean, I dropped in Ricky Pearsall at only 10%, which is the lowest of all the receivers that were drafted tonight. And you're hopeful that that'll kind of tick up towards maybe a 14% projection if or when one of those other guys is traded. But keep in mind, George Kittle's targets aren't going anywhere in this offense. Christian McCaffrey's targets aren't going anywhere in this offense. So I think that's a really tough one to squeeze in. I mean, he came out. Let's see. I'm going to have to do a little Control F and scrolling down to see where he came out ranking across all the receivers.
Yeah, Debo and Ayuk for me ended up around 23 and 25%. I haven't put in Pearsall yet, but those are some big rocks. If one of them were to move, there's going to be room for Pearsall to operate and to grow. But I think that would also mean a little bit of sprinkle more for Kittle. I don't think you're going to get much more than like an 18.5% target share. So for Christian McCaffrey, I think that that's pretty much where we're going to be, ascending to.
Yeah, Kittle could definitely creep up from where he's been sitting the last couple of years. I mean, he's been just having the spike weeks, but on the season level, averaging probably like 19%. But he's someone that could, earlier in his career, was hitting better numbers when there was just less target competition.
And Kittle, of course, a major target in best ball if one of those wide receivers leaves. Pearsall is going to have to learn the offense. And we've seen Shanahan in the past randomly put players in the doghouse. We've seen that with Trey Lance. We've seen it with Brandon Ayuk himself. We saw that with Dante Pettis back in the day, if you remember Dante Pettis. Shanahan and Tyrion Davis-Price did not pan out. Trey Sermon did not pan out. There are major draft capital assets that the 49ers have invested in previously, and they did not pan out. So, the known quantity is Kittle, and I think this signals to us that Kittle is a target.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's very likely one of those guys is dealt, and Kittle stock is up.
Yes.
And as far as the quarterbacks go, obviously we were all stunned by the Michael Penix pick from the Falcons. Our boy Jason Allwine is here watching right now.
Yes.
Atlanta local.
Shout out to Jason and the rest of the social team getting access to Radio Row in Detroit. They just made it back safely, and we're very happy about that.
And so Penix is the only quarterback that we have not projected to take a majority of the starts for his team that he was drafted by in the first round. I mean, you think if you're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, that guy's going to be a starter.
Especially a top 8 pick.
Yeah, truly, truly insane. So he's kind of not in the same playing field as these other quarterbacks, but I think McCarthy starts 15 games at least. I think Nix is going to be able to beat out Jarrett Stidham. Shocker. Yes. And then obviously those top 3 guys should be the locked in week 1 starters for their teams. So we were able to project them more easily. I mean, we got quarterback 11, Caleb Williams, 19.2 PPR points a game. Quarterback 14, Jaden Daniels at 20 points a game. Hold on a second.
I love it. No, I'm here for the Jaden Daniels. If he's going to rush for, he's going to get the rushing, and then we'll see how the passing is. But in Washington, you have Terry McLaurin, you have Jahan Dotson, who had a really good rookie year, and then things were just wonky last year. So I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a player that, yes, I know Memphis is out on, but who else is it going to be? Like, they're just going to have to live with the lumps of Jaden Daniels year 1.
Yeah, I think he's going to have some struggles as a passer for sure, but fantasy-wise, you're going to get that locked-in rushing upside. It's just going to be absolutely beautiful. And then, so going down from there, we had quarterback 14 for Jaden Daniels, quarterback 19 for Drake May. I think his passing efficiency is really going to struggle, but we do know that he also has a bit of a rushing floor and ceiling. I think these younger guys are just, they're in their best athletic shape that they'll be in as they enter the league. So Drake May might profile as a pocket passer later on in his career and his overall archetype, but he's going to be able to scramble this year, and he's going to need to. And then between Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy, we've got J.J. McCarthy ahead at quarterback 23, even though he was drafted 2 picks earlier, And the Minnesota landing spot is just absolutely sick
Yes.
for any quarterback in this draft class. We knew that going in. You would have liked to see McCarthy drafted by the Vikings at 5 overall, if that
Yes.
would have been, in the cards, just because that signals more zealous desire to make him their starter in week 1. But I think the weapons are good enough, and we know Kevin O'Connell is one of the top offensive minds in the league.
Yes.
So absolutely going to.
But I think McCarthy has a pathway to get you into that quarterback 12, quarterback 8. Of course, we do the projections for him being a mid to back end quarterback too. But with having Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and then whatever you can squeeze out of TJ Hawkinson as he returns from his ACL injury, adding Aaron Jones, this is an offense with high pass volume. As mentioned earlier, it's one of the highest passing volume offenses in the NFL. That's what O'Connell brings. I think if McCarthy is the starter, I'm not as pessimistic about I'm not as optimistic, I should say, about Sam Darnold starting a significant amount. I'm not sure how the player profiler projections have.
I've got
handled that.
15 games for McCarthy and only 2 for Darnold.
Yeah.
I think it could skew a little bit further in Darnold's favor, but I think they're going to want to turn over the keys to their rookie sooner than later.
Yes.
But I do think that the notion of Minnesota automatically being pass heavy could be questioned this year. I mean, they got Aaron Jones now, and I think that good coaches play to the strengths of their team.
Yes.
And we saw Michigan succeed by, not forcing McCarthy to throw all that much. They had the defense to do it. I would be surprised if the pass volume that we've seen with Kirk Cousins in years past is sustained with JJ McCarthy. I'm not automatically penciling in the Vikings to be one of the league
I did have
leaders
to
in
lower
pass
those
attempts.
percentages and the pass rates and the plays per game. But
yeah, I mean, just some names that are in that JJ McCarthy zone, just so people have a rough idea. Jared Goff is quarterback 21, Baker Mayfield quarterback 22, McCarthy 23, Matt Stafford quarterback 24, Daniel Jones quarterback 25. These are all guys that could realistically be quarterback 12 any given season. But there's just a lot of talented quarterbacks
price,
in this
though,
league.
For McCarthy pre-draft was extremely cheap. Same thing with Bo Nix, right? And Michael Penix, frankly. And I think Penix we can still pencil in as the backup quarterback for now. But getting McCarthy at quarterback 32 or Bo Nix at quarterback 34, 35 was an absolute win for your best ball teams that were, super flex. You were taking those guys as your quarterback 3/4 later on in your drafts, and now you've got a starter, which is beautiful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that it's going to be really, really interesting to see just how those guys all play out. And we haven't even touched on the receivers yet.
Right. So I did initial projections of Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, and I had them in that order. It was a significant gap, though, between Harrison and Neighbors. What do the player profiler projections say?
I agree with you on the order. I think our gaps are a little bit smaller. I believe you said you had Neighbors somewhere around wide receiver 35.
Yeah, about back end wide receiver 3.
Yeah, and I have him more like a high end low end wide receiver 2. I think right around wide receiver 24 is where he came in. Marvin Harrison is just on that cusp of wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1. I think wide receiver 13.
I have him at 11, so we're splitting hairs. But I think that
then
he
Odunze,
justifies his ADP right now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think his ADP right now baked in. He lands in Arizona where he's a number 1 target right away. That's what happened.
Didn't have to overthink it when you were doing the Kyler Marvin Harrison.
The Kyler Marv sacks are going straight to heaven.
Yes.
And then for me, I've got Odunze around wide receiver 40. I think the Bears receiver room is going to look a lot like the Texans in terms of projections, because you have 3 guys that all you really in your heart want to put them at least 25% target share, but you just can't do that in those offenses. So we've currently got, as a matter of fact, all 6 of those receivers between those 2 rooms are between wide receiver 26 and wide receiver 40 in our rankings right now. So you've got Dell and Collins and Diggs in some order in that cluster. And then you've got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze in some order.
Yes.
And they're all going to be drafted probably somewhere in the wide receiver 3 tiers. And they're all going to have massive contingent upside to be top 10 wide receivers if even one of the other receivers on their team goes down. I think that's going to be a really interesting dynamic to unpack and who to target in drafts. But I think in terms of dynasty, you love the landing spot for Rome because he's going to be attached to Caleb Williams for a decade.
And also, he doesn't have the pressure of being the number 1 wide receiver right off the bat with a rookie quarterback. You have DJ Moore, who is, yes, a veteran, but also not an aged wide receiver like Keenan Allen, who could be gone in the matter of a year.
And I find it beautiful because Odunze runs routes exactly like Keenan Allen. Like just seeing those two guys on the field together and him being able to learn under Keenan Allen, it just I'm going to sleep well tonight just dreaming about that.
One last player we'll hit on, and then we'll call it for the night. Brock Bowers. He was points per game projection for me as the tight end 9, but realistically more like tight end 8. And he's going tight end 6, 7, so really not too far off based on the ADPs. TJ Hawkinson is the reason why. I'd still have Bowers over Hawkinson given the ACL injury, but I don't imagine that he moves too significantly. I think there was room for the Raiders to have a player like Bowers in terms of target share.
Yeah, I mean, I just like Jacoby Myers more than most people. I think he's talented. I think he's underrated.
Yes.
I don't think his targets are going to vanish. He's just too good of a football player. I'm keeping him around 20%. I think Brock Bowers can still get to 15, 16, 17% in this offense, though. He'll get some targets closer to the line of scrimmage. Brings him up to tight end 8 in our projections, just behind George Kittle.
How about that?
Right behind Kyle Pitts.
Great minds think alike. How about that?
We even gave him some rush attempts, folks. You gotta project Brock Bowers for some touches
delightful.
on the ground.
This is great.
So maybe even a touchdown this year on the ground for Brock Bowers. It's
We need to keep Theo alive.
we're dreaming, folks.
My projections had Bowers 18% target share, 97 targets, 61 receptions, 640 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
I think I'm a little
pretty
more bullish than you on the yardage. I've got him for even though it's a lower target share at 17.5% to your 18. I think I just have more pass attempts in that offense, and that comes out to 68 receptions, 870 yards, and 5.5 touchdowns. So I like the landing spot for Bowers, and I don't know, maybe they're trying to do a New England 2.0 with.
I guess my only
Gronk
concern
and
is
Hernandez.
Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are the quarterbacks still.
Yeah.
So that's a major flag.
Is that an offense that is going to be able to
Maybe
sustain
Ryan
much fantasy
Tannehill's an
production?
upgrade, but they're not going to bring him in, unfortunately. So, nevertheless, Dario, it's been great. We're going to continue to bring you amazing content the rest of the weekend. Make sure that you are subscribed not only here on Player Profiler, the YouTube channel, but also we have Player Profiler News that you can smash the subscribe button, hit the likes, go over to that channel. Not only will you see this stream, but you will also see many shorts that give instant reactions, not only from the first round, but subscribe so you can get round 2, round 3, and the other deeper cut drafted players as we get into the rest of the draft, brought to you by Player Profiler, the Roto Underworld production. Dario, it's been great.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
Let's closing
Shout
out night 1 strong here.
Woo! My name is Bradley Stalder. You can follow me on the X Machine at Djibouti Puns. It's spelled like the country, Djibouti. Until next time, everyone, good luck in your rookie dynasty drafts. Any decisions you need to make sure that you are subscribed to Player Profiler for all the best fantasy football advice.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.